Morning, everybody. Thank you. We'll make the introduction really short because our speaker has really great things to share with us. Dream of Wild Health is a 10-acre organic farm in Hugo, Minnesota, a nonprofit organization surrounded by plants and medicines grown from the seeds of their ancestors. Very interesting about how pure those seeds are and how nutritional that food is from those seeds. Our speaker today is Diane Wilson. She's one of the co-founders. What this group Dream of Wild Health is about. Dream of Wild Health is committed to sharing their knowledge, resources, and skills with others in an effort to reduce poverty, improve health and nutrition, and reconnect people and plants in a reciprocal, oh my goodness, I'm going to goof up that word, Diane. Reciprocal, that's the right word. Thank you. Oh, I owe you something for that. They partner with dozens of urban and tribal organizations on programs that work to restore the mental, physical, and emotional health of their native communities. One of our good colleagues and longtime donors to Courage, Kenny, was in a conversation with Diane and heard a presentation and said, Stephen, you really need to get her for Rotary. So Diane, welcome to Rotary. We're glad you're here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Mitaki api, ampetu kinde iushkia wachian kapia, Diane Wilson ni maki yapia, videwa kanto ano yate hematahaya. Hello all my relatives, it's good to see you here today. My name's Diane Wilson and I am Dakota. I'm enrolled on the Rosebud Reservation. And so I want to thank Stephen for the invitation to come here today to talk with you all, and to the chief for getting things set up. Thank you. So I am the executive co-director for Dream of Wild Health. I'm also an author. I've written 2 books on Dakota culture and actually recovery from historical trauma. One book is called Spirit Car, the other book is called Beloved Child, and the work that I do has everything to do with the job that I do. So, but I'm here today to talk to you about the work that we do with Native youth and families in the Twin Cities through Dream of Wild Health. So we actually started as a program of an organization called Petawakan Tipi, and that organization provided transitional housing for Native people in recovery. And it was the clients who asked for a way to reconnect with the land and with traditional foods and medicines. And so as part of that, the founder, Sally Auger, started a little garden down in Farmington, Minnesota. It was a half-acre of leased land, and it's grown today into our 10-acre farm up in Hugo. We also have an office in Minneapolis. And our mission, our purpose, is to help restore health in the Native community by reconnecting Native people with traditional foods and medicines. And this is a photo taken of some of the kids in our program out at the farm. We have a saying that the work we do is about growing seeds and leaders. And I want to point out the 2 young men on the left, and I'm going to come back to them later when I talk a little more about the youth programs. But if you just remember those 2 young guys who are about 11 and 12 there. So the reason that we do the work that we do is because of statistics like these around the epidemic of diabetes and other preventable diseases in the Native community. So generations ago, when the Dakota, for example, the tribe that I come from, lived pretty much in the southern half of Minnesota, a traditional diet was game, wild game, a lot of bison and venison and small game, as well as wild gathered plants and a few cultivated plants like corn. And in those days, there was no diabetes. And so when tribes were moved onto reservations and the government provided commodity foods that were high in starch, high in fat, high in sugar, then what happened was an increase in diabetes, type 2 diabetes in particular, so that today we have what is an epidemic of diabetes, the highest in the country. And so the work that we do is really about rebuilding a relationship with food and the land that is based on the way our ancestors lived. So we can't go back. We can't really go back and do our own gathering and hunting anymore, but we can learn from the foods that we used to eat and the way in which we used to live. And so our work is about reteaching an idea that our food is our medicine, that our health so much depends on what we eat and our relationship to it. So these days you see a lot of interest in a local food movement. There's a lot of questions around GMOs. And so to me, this is a really important shift back to the way that our grandparents lived and our great-great-grandparents lived. And that's the work that we do with Native youth and families. So we have three primary components to what we do. One is a Save Seed program. We have an indigenous berry orchard. We have an organic market garden, and then we have programs, education programs working with Native youth and families. And these are some of the young men in our Garden Warrior program. And this was an artist-created illustration of the ancestors that we believe are present in all of the work that we do. So back in about, 2000, when we were gardening on that little piece of land down in Farmington, a Potawatomi elder and seed keeper named Cora Baker, who farmed all her life in Wisconsin Dells, she heard about Dream of Wild Health, and she had a collection of over 100 seeds, old rare seeds that had been given to her by people who were passing by, who would see her old Indian corn hanging out to dry, and they would stop to visit and they would give her seeds. So when she was in her 90s and getting ready to pass, her children didn't want the seeds. They knew it was too big of a responsibility. And so when she heard about Dream of Wild Health, and she wrote us a letter and said that it was her prayer that Indian people would get back to gardening again, and that she really believed that returning to these traditional foods was a way back to regaining our health. So when she sent that collection of seeds to Dream of Wild Health, that's when I got involved. I heard about the seeds. I'm a master gardener. And the work that I've done around the cultural identity in my own family just appealed to me immediately. So I've been actually part of Dream of Wild Health since the year 2000. In 2008, after volunteering all those years, they finally gave me a job, so she's not going away. So at that time, the founder, Sally Auger, was getting ready to transition out of her role as executive director. So then in 2011, I took over for her. But it was that gift of seeds that really formed a deep purpose for the work that we do. And so one of the reasons why these seeds are so important to us, and this is something our ancestors knew, is that these old seeds still hold on to all of their wonderful nutrition. So that today, when seeds are being manipulated so that they increase their yield, for example, which I know helps the farmer's bottom line, or they're manipulated to be resistant to a disease or a pest, for example, sometimes it's done at the cost of the nutrition. And so what we did was test our seeds. The corn, squash, and beans are the most commonly known seeds that we grow, and discovered that they are, in fact, extremely high in their nutrition. So we did a test on the antioxidants in the beans that we grow compared to the market variety, and the antioxidants in those beans were 4 times higher than the beans that we buy at the grocery store. So it's something for us all to think about. In these old heritage varieties that our families and our grandparents grew and protected, there's a big impact on health when you think about what's going into our fields these days and the discussions around GMOs and industrial agriculture. So one of the things that we do is a market garden, and it's all organically grown vegetables, everything that you'd find at any farmer's markets, your potatoes, tomatoes, carrots, green beans. And we have about between 2 and 3 acres in production. So the reason we grow out a variety of vegetables in addition to our old seeds is that we want people to have access to healthy food of all varieties. And so we have 3 markets right now, one in Minneapolis at the Midtown Market, one in St. Paul, and then another one on Franklin Avenue, right in the Phillips neighborhood, which for many of you know as the heart of the Native community in Minneapolis. And so the intention for those markets is to provide easy access to healthy food. And so our prices are very reasonable, and then we subsidize with vouchers, we take EBT, and we make a lot of donations to food shelves and to the Elders Lodge. These are 2 of our garden warriors who are working at the market. That's one of the ways that we provide job skills. And then we have a range of education programs, because one of the things we've learned the hard way is that if people don't know what to do with the food, they're not going to want it. So we have family programs in St. Paul and Minneapolis that provide education in gardening and cooking. And the idea is rebuild that relationship. You know, get your hands back in the soil, understand the plants, learn how to cook, learn how to grow your food, learn what goes into it. So these 2 women are working at our community garden in St. Paul near Harding High School. The families come, they share the work, and then they also share the food. And we support it with farmers helping provide technical information, and then also teaching how to do food preservation. So in the fall we do, for example, tomatoes. We're canned tomatoes. So families can come and learn how to preserve the the vegetables from the garden. We also do a cooking program in the fall, winter, so that families come for 4 to 6 weeks, and many of them get a box of utensils. So that one of the barriers to eating healthy, if you don't have pots and pans, you don't have knives or spatulas, we give you a box so that you are set up in your own kitchen in order to cook. So the youth programs, in addition to the seeds, are among the most important work that we do. So we have year-round programs, and the kids come out to the farm and they learn about seed saving, they're learning about their culture, about traditional agriculture, about organic farming. And the idea is that if we can help Native youth build a very strong cultural identity, if we can get them out of the city to a safe environment where they're building very strong relationships with sober adults, then what we've seen is that many of these kids really thrive in that environment. So a lot of the kids in our programs come from low-income families. We've had kids come out of homeless shelters, out of foster families, out of families struggling with addictions. And so we found that the city is a safe environment, and that's a really important aspect for them. When we ask them what attracted them to the program, what we often hear is that it's a safe place, that they know that if they were at home, they'd be making other choices and often getting into trouble. But what we've seen is if you give them a place and challenge them to thrive, then they rise to that challenge. So Native youth are graduating at a rate of 20% from Minneapolis public schools these days. And so we want to give them every support we can to help them do well. So the programs that we provide for youth, the Garden Warriors Apprenticeship Program, we just finished up in August with our second group. So we have 2 sessions each summer. They're 4 weeks each. The kids are 13 to 18. And they come out, we send a van down to pick them up. So we have a limit of 15 because that's what our van holds. And they come out in the morning and they're all half asleep. And then the first thing they do on that first day, we say, no cell phones, no iPads, no electronic equipment. So you can imagine there's some culture shock there. And then we start in circle with prayer with our elder, and then they do a lesson with the master gardener. They work in the fields. They take turns going into the kitchen where they learn to cook with produce from the garden. And then for lunch, we eat at picnic tables outside and we share the meal together. And that's their second shock of the day when they are asked to eat a lot of new vegetables. So they're typical teenagers. They love their hot Cheetos and pop, but what they'll learn at the farm is to try new things. And then also to understand the impact of that Cheetos and pop. So we know they're teenagers. They're going to continue being teenagers. But what we've seen is that there's a transformative effect over time. So that if we can get them to start tasting that food that first week, and there's always a few who will only eat fruit. But if we can get them to try it by the end of that session, then what we see is they're enjoying the food. Many of them come back for multiple years, and then what we see is they're developing skills where they can go on into jobs. They've got employable skills. The two young men that I pointed out in that first slide have actually been in our program for 7 years. So the taller one started when he was 12. He's in the second year of college at Augsburg. He just completed an internship in conservation at USC Davis, which we helped him get through a recommendation from our program. But they both are part of a single parent family on the east side of St. Paul. We've actually had 5 kids out of their family now, and they are true role models for the other kids in the program. So one of the things we do is provide a scholarship at the end of the summer to one or two of the youth who really show potential. And so the one who they both received scholarships from us as well. We start our programs as young as 8 years old with Cora's kids. That's where we that's an age group who actually are more inclined to listen to us as adults. They still think we're cool, we're fun, and they're more willing to try things, whereas teenagers, being teenagers, it takes a little longer. But the Cora's kids each last a week, and it gives them the fundamentals, and many of them go on to become garden warriors. Youth leaders are the garden warriors who are most successful in our programs, and they become advocates. So we send them out to conferences to do public speaking, which is a real challenge for teenagers, but again, they rise to high expectations. So one group did a play one year, another group they did a video, another group sold healthy meals at a powwow, which if you've been to powwows where fry bread is the norm, then you know that this was a true creative challenge for them. But we have such respect for our children that people will support what they do, and that's why reaching youth is really important to us, because we know they go back into their families and their communities and they make change. So if they stand up for healthy food and healthy lifestyles, then we know that the community will listen to them and start to change. They just drew up a food policy for us at the farm. So, it was a great exercise for them in learning how to think through what is healthy and what's indigenous. I did bring a copy just to show you of our cookbook. This is one of the ways that we help support families. It uses a lot of indigenous ingredients like wild rice, but in contemporary recipes that are pretty easy, because I know that I cook from this, and this is not one of my skill sets, so very accessible. These are available on our website. And then these are the markets that I mentioned, the Tuesdays at the Midtown, in case you find yourselves in Minneapolis or St. Paul. We have our kids work at these markets, so that's one of the ways that they get job skills. We pay them, and our kids use that money to sometimes to help support their families, or to buy school supplies or school clothes. We just joined a new market, which is on Franklin Avenue, right in the heart of the Phillips neighborhood, and we're really hopeful that one is going to do well. And this is the, everyone's favorite job, turning the compost pile. So,
That's why so many people are doing it.
yeah, if you can have a whole group working together, things go better. But we also love volunteer groups, and I know that your group in particular works a lot with very different events, and that you support the youth in your communities. And if you ever had an interest in coming out to the farm and spending a service day with us, we would love to have you. So that is, let's see, how'd we do?
You're doing great.
We did good. Okay, so
Time for some questions.
yes, we have time for questions. Yeah.
Do you get pretty good representation of both boys and girls in the program?
Yeah, it's a competitive process because we're so limited on size. So they have to write an essay to get in. And then we make sure that it's balanced between age groups and also gender. So, and then we get about 50% back every year. Yeah.
Are some of these native seeds available for sale if we wanted to do our own gardens?
Well, that's a great question. We don't sell the seeds, but we do give them away. So what we ask is that we're all about forming relationships with people. So in the spring, we'll do workshops with our seeds, because we have a protocol about how you work with those seeds. And what we're trying to do is protect them from people who might come in and want to commercialize them, or a Monsanto who might want to come in and take a little genetic material and patent it. So if you come to a workshop and you have an interest in really working with those seeds, then we will gladly share them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did I hear you work with the University of Minnesota Agriculture?
Yeah. We work with both their horticulture, different departments, but the food science in particular, and then also their horticulture department. But Bud Markart was one of our long-term advisors, so we've had a great relationship with the U.
Scholarships for kids.
We've fundraised for those, but that would be another thing to look at. And somebody over here, yeah.
Well, you really got to, or you asked the question, how do you support yourself?
Oh, fundraised, primarily fundraised income, but we're really working to make that farm as self-sustaining as we can.
Diane, is there anybody else in the country who does what you all do?
There is increasing movement across tribes to move into healthier food, because that epidemic of diabetes it's across the country. What we're finding is that we're a bit ahead, that our programs are now being used as a model, in particular the work that we're doing with youth. And then we're a founding member of the Upper Midwest Indigenous Seed Keepers Alliance to work with seeds. So we're working with tribes around our region to share that knowledge and to share seeds, because the best way to protect seeds is to grow them. So again, seeds and leaders, those are the two things. So yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen any kind of drop in these health issues like diabetes and so on? Or is it a little too early to tell, or have you seen less obesity?
I think we're going to see it with this generation that's coming up. I think the adults, that's where it's really hard to change. But we had a Chorus Kids group come, and we have a little exercise that we do for remembering names, where you go around and you say your favorite food. And one of the young boys, who's probably 10 years old, his favorite food was kale. I thought, wow, I have never heard that, and I've been doing this work for a long time. That gave me great hope. Yeah, could happen. Yeah. So, anything else? Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed being here today.